the Nasdaq and the overall market looking very bearish at this point. If you look at the chart and you look at the setup and you look at what's going on with the candles and the overall price movement over the last few months, there's something to be said. I'm going to talk about that here in this video. The idea that there's a crash, another crash to come here in 2020. I'm going to talk about it right here, right now. So let's go. What's going on, guys? Patrick here, and today we're talking about the overall market, the Nasdaq, more so focused on the Nasdaq, focused on big tech stocks and what we're seeing here on the chart. And it's pretty clear what we're seeing right now on the chart. There's a lot of indecision going on, obviously going into the election. There's a lot of fear. At the end of the day, people become fearful when we have different outcomes that could lead to different scenarios, especially now with the election being so close. The idea that tech maybe just got a little bit ahead of itself after the whole pandemic and everything being shut down, the entire world shut down, people out of work, businesses shut down around the world, but tech has been booming nonstop. And as you can see, this is pretty much what we're looking at right now in terms of this is the crash that we had back there in March. And look at this amazing rally ever since. But guess what? We are now running into some trouble here. We've got some trouble to think about. And it's pretty clear what's going on. These are the monthly candles. So this is obviously October and September. And well, guess what? We had this little push up there above 300 on the Qs. And we pulled all the way back down here, 260 area. As that support right there, 260. We've got these two red candles indicating that there's selling pressure, indicating that the buyers are starting to get exhausted at this point. So we got to ask ourselves, how much more money is out there willing to bet that the market is going to go higher at the end of 2020 at this point? We've obviously got 2 more months here, November and December. Normally, November, December is a pretty volatile time as well. So what's the big deal, Patrick? What should we be looking at? What should we be worried about? And what is my game plan at this point? Really, for me, I think it comes down to this. That 260 area, 270, 260, this area right here, we need to see that hold. We want to see that support form there. And we want to see kind of something, something similar to this, where how we had this, obviously this pullback there in March, but you can see that next month candle really kind of bouncing back there and making that higher low there. Higher low. This was the low, and then we made that higher low, and then ding, 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 up to that 260 level. And now that 260 level is very, very key to keep an eye on. Like I said, there's a lot of fear right now because of the election, because people think that possibly this could be the pullback. And the thing about pullbacks, the thing about the market crash is what it really comes down to is overall emotion. The people, what do people see happening? What do they fear? What do they think about at this point? I'm thinking that most people that bought here in March and held through this whole push up there, I'm thinking a lot of them took profit, right? A lot of them took profit up there at the 300 area. Obviously, this right now is the ETF that we're looking at for the Qs and the Nasdaq. But overall, as you can see, so like same thing on Apple. Obviously, Apple is a big importance to the tech market. You can see Apple booming. This is obviously after the split there. But Apple also looking very bearish at this point. So this was in March. We had the pullback there, $60 area. We rallied. Look at the massive rally here. Basically, doubling in price there after the pandemic. So a lot of questions again, like, hey, the world's ending. There's a huge pandemic. Businesses are shut down. But Apple somehow doubled in price, being, one of the largest companies in the world. Doubles in price, doubles in market cap, goes to the moon. But guess what? Now gravity starts to come into play. And one thing about stocks in general is gravity's always there, right? There's always that pressure from above. It's easy for a stock to kind of just go sideways and slowly kind of move higher. But the problem is, once these stocks start to get irrational and start going higher and higher and higher, there's that question like, hey, we got to get some type of pullback here. We've got to show that there are areas of support after this massive rally. Now, Again, one thing that I always like to make clear here, I've been wrong before, right? I've been wrong before. I've been wrong plenty of times. It's not about being wrong. It's not about being right as an investor. It's not about knowing where the market's going to go. It's about understanding the different levels at this point. Same thing on Apple. I would like to see Apple hold that $100 area, that $105. Pretty much anything, in this area here is a support at that point. What we don't want to see at this point is we don't want to see Apple start to do this and start to retest these levels, this $90 area kind of being that support off that monthly candle there, and then really 80, 70, and then down there to 60s. A lot of bearish people are calling for a, pretty big drastic pullback here, especially with all of the indecision, with all the fear and the greed, the fear, the greed, all the emotions in the market right now, especially with the elections and everything going on this week. So there's a lot of stuff going on. At the end of the day, I think it's pretty clear that the Fed is not going to be raising rates. So the only real return on your money right now is to end up buying equities. And that's one of the reasons that they're keeping the rates low in general, is to basically be like, hey, people need to be buying the stock market. People need to be buying the Fugazi, the Fugazi-Azzies. So that's one of the big drivers right now. There's just not much out there in terms of good returns. Now, it's interesting too, because if you look at a stock like Overstock, looking at OSTK here, Overstock, you can see this massive pullback as well, which is funny because back in 2018, guess what we got? This is back in 2018, we had this big pullback, that big push, and well, guess what? We have had something very looking similar at this point. Does that mean that Overstock is going to continue to sell off and pull back to the $5 area? No, but guess what, my friends? It's pretty clear that gravity being up here, all this selling pressure there, gravity is real here, right? I don't know why sometimes my finger in my drawings. Look at all that selling pressure there on that monthly candle. We went from $90 up there to $130 and then pulled back now down there to $55. I think Overstock at this point, again, is grossly overvalued, really, at this point, especially with what really happened and just the combination. I just don't think that Overstock is a household name that people really care about. And it's not like a cult following. Not like Amazon. Amazon's a cult following. People love Amazon. People love Amazon Prime. People love shopping on Amazon because everything is on Amazon. Where Overstock, it's a different question. So you got all these tech companies that made massive moves because of hype, because this idea that everyone's going to be shopping online. But you got to ask ourselves, at what point do we see some type of pullback? Same thing here, looking at Zoom. Look at Zoom here, looking bearish as well. So all these tech companies that we're looking at, all these tech stocks that we're looking at, we're seeing something very, very similar. Looking at all of these different tech stocks, it's a pretty similar pattern at this point. Looking at these monthly candles, that obviously October was a pullback, needing that pullback at some point. Again, this is Zoom going from $75 up there to $475, really with no pullback at all. A couple of little pullbacks there, but in general, look at this move. It's insane, and can we really say that it's warranted at this point? So I think Zoom here still needs to pull back some more. I think there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype around these tech stocks because everybody's kind of focusing on the tech stocks, on the Internet of Things, because everyone's thinking that, retail, that people are going to be working from home forever. They're going to be needing Zoom forever and all these things. But you've got to look at it like there's a lot of different players in the space, especially with Facebook, with Google, with all these different players. Is Zoom really the standout at this point? I've never paid for Zoom. I've never spent any money on Zoom, but I've used it a few times. So I don't know exactly. But going back to the overall idea here, guys. Overall idea, what are we looking at? The Nasdaq. Obviously, we've had this just insane push. We're looking for some type of pullback. And it would work out perfectly if this kind of just gets up here, consolidates here at the 260, 270 area, and then we look for a big, massive move. Going into the elections, I don't really think there's any need to open new positions. If you have, tons of money that you want to spend going into the election, I think there's going to be opportunities to buy, but is there really a need to buy right now until we kind of see what we're going to do after this pullback? Like I said, 260, 270 area being the support area we want to see hold. If these candles, if the Qs, if the tech stocks start to look like we're bottoming out, and I want to say bottoming out, looking like we're finding that support finally, again, after this pullback, I think it's a good, decent, healthy pullback there, but it's pretty simple to see, what is going on, especially with all this selling pressure there in October and some pretty drastic sell-offs as well there in October. Seeing that selling pressure coming in there multiple times there at the 300 level. These are all wicks on the tops of these candles. The wicks are pretty evident. We had some indecision there in September, but we closed overall red on the month there of September. And then you can see how much selling pressure came in there once we try to retest that level. And I think that's also something to think about here. We tested that level 3 times there, but obviously we had a lot of sellers come in there once that level just could not break. And it's just, at this point, who's really buying up there? Who's buying at the $300 level when you could have bought down here in the $180, $200 level at this point? So who's really buying right now? Who's really trying to get in at this point? I think a lot of people are going to be sitting on the sidelines going into the elections and waiting for the pullback, and that's exactly kind of what I'm doing. I'm looking at stocks that have had big runs, and I kind of had some FOMO I missed out on, and now I'm looking for a pullback for some of the stocks that I might have missed out on or that I want to buy for long-term holds, but there's no point in me buying until I kind of figure out which way the market wants to go from here. Again, it's not about really predicting what's going to happen. It's about looking at the different cases here. The bull case, the bear case. The bullish case is there's not really much else in terms of return on investment other than investing in stocks right now. Everything else is just kind of in a weird space, especially with the whole interest rates and the Fed just printing and all that. But it really looks like at this point, we just got to sit back and wait and see what happens with that election and all that. Today, futures are already green, so there's possibility we're going to get a little bounce, a little rally today. We'll see what happens. But again, I'm going to be kind of sitting back and waiting and watching. But the Nasdaq, is it time to pull back? How far can she go? How much lower can she go? We're going to see here. Very interesting pattern that we got going on right now. Obviously looking very bearish at this point. So that 270 area, 280, 260. Let's see what happens from there. Obviously that $300 area on the Qs is kind of just right there in our eye, right there in our eyesight, in our line of sight there. So let's see what happens. If you guys have any questions or concerns, or you just want to talk about life, you want to talk about the stock market or whatever it is the Nasdaq grossly overvalued at this point? Some of these companies are trading at multiples that no one's even seen before. What do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. I will talk to you guys later on.